What's up, everybody? My name is Danny, and welcome to my channel, The Digital Disputation. Um, this will be an introductory video and a syllabus where I will go over the different topics that I'm going to cover. I'm going to start out with a little biography of who I am. My name is Danny. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I currently live in the city. I worked for the New York City Department of Sanitation for 5.5 years before I was terminated for refusing to comply with the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Myself and 15 other sanitation workers are part of a landmark case that we won back in 2022 called Garvey et al. Versus New York City, where we declared the New York City mandate arbitrary and capricious. The reason being that Eric Adams' vaccine mandate, which got thousands of blue-collar workers fired or forced them to take a vaccine that they didn't want, it had a specific exemption carved out for actors, athletes, performers, and their entourages. So under Eric Adams' Order 62, a stripper and her pimp were exempted from the same vaccine mandate that got thousands of blue-collar workers fired because a stripper is a performer and her pimp is her entourage. We won our case in 2022. Eric Adams dragged out the appeals. We finally went to oral arguments in April of 2024. And since then, we have been waiting on the Second Appellate Court to resolve this. Just before Eric Adams left office, he promised to change the DCAS rule. The DCAS is the city's overall human resources department that would have forced us to forfeit our court win and absolve the city of any wrongdoing, and then we could go back to work. Obviously, that's not feasible. So he promised he was going to change that rule before he left office. He made a big production, went to the media, broadcasted it everywhere. And on December 5th, which was the day he was supposed to send the rule change up to Albany to be approved, he didn't do it. So now we're waiting on Mayor Mamdani to finally either do it or, tell us what he's going to do. He has refused to respond to any reporters or any city government members who have inquired and asked him to please get this rule change done for us. Just to point out that to fire unionized civil servants, unionized in good standing civil servants without their due process, that they could do with no problem. But, to get us back to work, well, we got to follow a decorum. We got to make sure we do everything by the books. There aren't that many people left here and now in 2026 that believe that what was done to people like us was justified. But for those who still believe that it was right to fire blue-collar workers for refusing to comply with the vaccine mandate, let me just put it into perspective for you. If the vaccine mandate was necessary as the only means to mitigate this deadly and dangerous virus, why were celebrities exempted from it? Why were certain unions in New York City who had at least in the past 20 years, broken the Taylor Law, which, for those who don't know, forbids New York City civil servants from striking. Why is it that those guys were exempted? And then if you need even more perspective, well, let me ask you this. I had my religious exemption denied, so I was terminated. But if you had your religious exemption granted, you were allowed to continue working without getting vaccinated. How does an approved religious exemption stop you from spreading COVID? Doesn't make any sense. None of it did. And what's really unfortunate is, despite the change in people's minds, even people who did support the vaccine at the time or have taken boosters, it's very rare to meet anybody who still supports what was done to us. So here we are now 4 years later. After winning our case, Eric Adams dragged out the appeal, and now we've been waiting for the appellate court to rule on us. This should be a no-brainer, but I do believe that the city doesn't want to lose its ability to mandate people again if they decide to. So this is where we're at. So what I'd like to be discussing as a syllabus for this channel is a few different topics. First and foremost, I'm going to discuss the COVID situation and what has come up around it. The other thing I want to discuss is the politics in New York City, things that are going on here. I know there's a lot of people who believe that Mayor Mamdani, that we get what we deserve with him, and we deserve whatever happens to us because we voted in all these socialists. But there's two things. Number one, it's not really that many locals who support the DSA and support these hardcore left-wing council members, assemblymen, etc., who push the things that they push, the bail reform, which was done by Cuomo, or the idea of, not holding people accountable for crimes. It's not us, the locals, who are supporting that. It's mostly the transplants. It's mostly people coming in from, especially the West Coast, who are refugees from the policies that turned Seattle and California and Portland, Oregon into the mess that it has become. And they come out here to New York because they've made the West Coast practically unlivable, and they right away want to inflict on us those same policies. And the New York City local government is now primarily targeting them for support, and that's really where a lot of their support is coming from. So it's not us. We are victims of what I call the transplantocracy, which is we are being governed by people who are not interested in what the locals want, what the people who've been here our whole lives want. I don't remember New York being the way it is now. And some might say, especially people like in my family who grew up and lived through New York through the 70s and 80s, they don't remember New York being as bad as it is now. And as much as people want to laugh and point and say New York gets what it deserves, whatever happens here is going to spread out to the rest of the country. You can be in your little town in Tennessee, in North Carolina, and it's going to come to you next. And we in New York, we are Americans. We have the same constitutional rights that you do, and we should all, as Americans, be looking out for each other and for helping each other to overcome this evil that has basically usurped our government, our local governments especially. So I would like to talk a lot about that as well. I also want to talk about the labor movement. I have a bit of a controversial quote, which I will get to in a second, but I believe that the only way that we are going to undo the New World Order that they are trying to inflict on us is through labor, is through blue-collar, middle-class men and women who keep cities running, who keep the state functioning. Sorry, my microphone just stopped working. So blue-collar workers who keep cities and states functioning. the only way we're going to fix the problems is through labor, job actions, striking, and you don't have to be a communist to say workers of the world unite, because the blue-collar middle-class people are the people who they are trying to destroy. The goal, this is why they do all this to help tech workers and illegals, but the middle-class men and women are the ones who they are trying to destroy. And essentially what we're living through right now is class warfare. And the more they shrink the middle class, the more the middle class allows itself to be shrunk, the more we are going to lose our ability to feed our families, the ability to protect our constitutional rights, and the ability to create a world that our children will be able to live in. And I tell my former colleagues, who I always say about DSNY, New York City runs this country. If Wall Street takes a day off, the whole rest of the country may as well take a day off. And when they actually have federal money comes in to help clear the snow in Lower Manhattan, because Wall Street has to open every day. The trains have to run every day. The garbage has to get picked up every day. New York City runs this country. 831 runs New York City. Without us, this city would be piled high in trash. The snow would never get cleared. You can go your whole life never calling a cop or a fireman, but you need your sanitation worker every single day. 831, DSNY runs this city. This city runs this country. DSNY runs this country. One blue-collar union has more power than a tech worker union, than a communications workers union. The only way that we can begin to fight back is through unionization, unionizing workers, having strong, competent people in charge of these unions, and making sure that it's not about social issues. It's about protecting middle class and blue collar values. It's about making sure, because the world that you allow these sick fucks to create is the world that your children will inherit. And if your children inherit a world where there are no jobs, where there's no retirement, where your health care forces you to take vaccines and boosters in order to come into work because there's no variety of, healthcare options, it's going to be your fault. We are at a crossroads here. We are a fork in the road. And if blue-collar men and women do not rebel against this system, we are going to go back to the Dark Ages. We are going to become the digital Dark Ages. We are going to be serfs. And we don't want to be. We don't just have the ability to protect ourselves. We have the ability to change the course that they have set for us and to reverse what they have already done. The destruction of schools where children are being indoctrinated, but they can't read, but they can be indoctrinated. The death of critical thinking, which is what schools used to teach you. Your children will inherit the world that you create for them. And we have to understand that if we don't do something now, there will be no future. There will be no future for us. for anybody. We have to demand it. I hear from private unions, essential private unions like the private sanitation unions. I hear how they're abusing their workers, and these guys are unionized. But these men don't step up anymore. They don't try to step up and do anything to make their situation better, because it's a mixture of a lack of leadership and a lack of confidence. And I'm here to instill that confidence in you. Blue-collar, middle-class unions, you run this country. You have the ability to change the course of history. You have this ability. You can end political careers. You can make things better for yourselves. But the leadership there's going to be no labor messiah that's going to come and save everybody. All you have is each other. If you're a transit worker, if you are a sanitation worker, private or public, all you have is the guy next to you. You are all in the same boat. And you have to realize that. And you have to step up, because we are running out of time. And people don't realize what they've lost until it's gone. And I sacrificed my career. I sacrificed my stability, because when they mandated me to take the vaccine, I begged my guys to step up, to fight back. Don't let this happen. Don't let them do this to you. Because I knew we had that ability. And when Staten Island and some parts of the Bronx and Brooklyn were slowing down, doing like a work slowdown to protest, there were teachers, firemen, cops coming out of their house saying, "Don't take the garbage. Keep this going. Keep this going." We had the ability to stop this. But we have to be in it together. Whether or not you agreed, whether or not you took all the boosters, it didn't matter. What matters is that some of your colleagues didn't want to do this. And the vaccine mandate will go down in history as one of the worst human rights, civil rights, and workers' rights violations of the 21st century. They took from you your bodily, religious, and moral autonomy. My body, my choice. They violated that. And we have to stop it from happening again. And we have to realize that everything they're doing to us now is because a majority of the people handed over their bodily autonomy to the state for a vaccine mandate that exempted celebrities. This can't be. And my message, especially to police officers, you are the protectors of the middle class. Law enforcement officers, I hate seeing it when you guys violate people's Fourth Amendment rights, when you violate their rights to speech, because that's not what you should be doing. Your job is to protect the middle class. That is why you live amongst us. That is why you live amongst teachers and garbage men and MTA workers. You're not living in the gated communities. Your job is not to protect the hierarchy and the oligarchies. Your job is to protect your neighbors. And when law enforcement officers realize that that is their obligation, they will stop violating people's rights for their speech, for their right to privacy, and they will look at the people above who are creating the circumstances that are destroying the future that your children will inherit. and realize they have to rebel. They have to arrest them. Kathy Hochul, the demon that runs the governor of New York City, who's most likely going to win the election again, I always said, how much of a revolution would it be if the sheriff of some upstate New York county, Fulton County, Livingston County, Madison County, whatever, what would happen if they decided to sit down with their DA, go through the list of crimes that she has committed against those people, and issue a warrant for her arrest? How much of a revolution would that be if she can't go to Livingston County, New York, because she has a warrant for her arrest? There is a state trooper not 50 feet from these people at all times. What happens if they say, enough? We watched Tish James get away with fraud, with mortgage fraud, just swept under the rug. The justice is not going to come from the system itself. The justice is going to come from the middle class workers who decide they've had enough. And especially here in New York City, where we are being tormented by the DSA politics, by these hardcore leftists that don't even want to prosecute criminals, that are allowing criminality to run rampant. Your children, even if you're not a cop, your children live here. Your mom and dad live here. Your brothers and sisters live here too. You can run to Florida. Man, Florida sucks. Let me just tell you the truth. Florida sucks. Once you've lived in New York City, you can't go anywhere else. You can't live anywhere else. And then at the end of the day, New York City, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Kansas City, Missouri, Phoenix, Arizona. If you live there your whole life, that's your home. Why should you have to run from your home? Why? If you want to live there, if you want to raise your children on the same streets that you were raised on, give them the same experiences that you had, why do you have to run from there because your government is choosing to torment you? You shouldn't have to. And as much as people tell me, get out of New York, get out of New York, I can't leave this place that easily. And for all the people who tell me, give up on your colleagues, they're never going to wake up, give up on them, give up. Unfortunately, I can't do that because I share the world with these people. I want to have kids someday. And I realize that the world that I want to bring my kids into is the same world that their kids are in already, or they're going to bring their kids into. And we all and I have an obligation to wake these guys up, to wake up every middle-class man, every blue-collar worker in this country, to recognize your strength, to recognize how powerful you are. If you unionize, you work together, you don't approach social issues, you maintain the fundamentals of being an American, the Bill of Rights. And if you do this, we can change history. This is not about going to our wars with Iran. This is not about any of that. This is about winning the wars at home, fixing the world that we live in already. And it's imperative that my former colleagues recognize their obligation to that. That not just my former colleagues, but the guys driving the trains, the private sanitation workers, they recognize their obligation and they exercise their rights. The backbone of the United States is the middle class. That's the most powerful force the average person has, is unions. that are not corrupt, that the members of those unions protect from corruption and expel corruption, and use the ability of workers to work together to reverse the course that they have set for us. So that's one of the big topics that I'm going to cover, is organized labor and organizing workers to fight back, whether it's here in New York City or in San Diego, California. Doesn't matter. We all have the same goal: to feed our families, to retire someday with benefits, and to ensure that the world that we create is a world that our children will be proud of us for creating for them. And finally, I'm not going to keep this too long because this is just a syllabus, but one of the big things that I'm going to cover here is debunking Jewish conspiracies. The algorithm of the internet, especially on social media like Twitter, is designed to lead you to believe that there is a vast Jewish conspiracy to take down the West, and I'm going to debunk that. I'm going to explain that it's not a Jewish conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy of one group. It's a conspiracy of a system. Yes, there is someone behind that system, and I will expose that, and I will help people to understand what is really going on. See, I like to use a lot of car analogies. When most people don't know how a car works, if you say, well, how does your car work? What powers your car? They'll say the engine, the wheels. But most people are not going to say, well, when you turn the key, it sparks the spark plug, ignites the gas, hits the pistons, and then the pistons start going, and that allows you to yada, yada, yada. Most people don't understand how a system works. And there is a system that controls your media, that controls what you see. And it's not a Jewish conspiracy. There are Jews who are part of it. But the Rothschilds are not behind it. The Rothschilds are middle management. It is Rome. It is the Vatican. It is the Neo-Roman Empire that is in control of the world that you are experiencing right now. I will show you how it is them. I will explain it with detail. And I'm gonna tell you, look up everything I say. Research it for yourself. I will show you the proofs. When I'll debunk, I'm gonna post probably a video from another page, another fantastic researcher that I collaborated with, about the Talmud quotes that people put up. It's all a distraction. The whole "it's the Jews" is a distraction to keep you from looking at the engine instead of understanding the system and how it's powered. So I'm going to pretty much leave it at that, because this is going to be my first video, and I might have to run out for a minute, but I was going to put out a video about New York City next, and then maybe an introduction to the Neo-Roman Empire, to the Vatican, and to Rome. And I would like to keep this going. I'm also going to be holding spaces on Twitter. You're welcome to follow me. Danny D. Hulk 86 is my Twitter handle. I also would like to quickly recommend a few people who I suggest you also follow, not just on Twitter, but on YouTube and on other platforms. First and foremost is one of the most brilliant scholars. Well, all of these guys are, but I did an interview with him once before. It's on Rumble. You can find it if you search my name, Danny Hulkower, Hulkower, and that's Johnny Cerrucci. If you want to understand the Neo-Roman Empire, the Jesuit world order, you need to be following Johnny Cerrucci. I also recommend looking up Eric John Phelps. I don't always agree with him on everything, but his information is spot on, and that's what's important. I only judge a person by whether or not their information can be fact-checked, and it can. So, Johnny Cerrucci, Eric John Phelps, and I collaborated with Michael King. He is a brilliant scholar and researcher. He is on Twitter, and he's also on YouTube. You can look up Michael King. We did a project on debunking Jewish conspiracies. It's about 4 or 5. It's absolutely fantastic work. Not just what I did with him, but his work in general. He gets into stuff about like the papal bloodlines and who's really behind, who are the people, the nouns behind the system. I highly recommend you follow him as well. So Johnny Cerrucci, Eric John Phelps, Michael King. I'll post more as I go because I'm not, I didn't really think it out all the way, but those are my 3 top. Those are the guys who I think are at the top. I also highly recommend, if you are on Reddit, look up Jesuit World Order, Jesuit World Order. There's a Jesuit World Order, and then there's Jesuit World Order 2. Jesuit World Order is the first one is no longer active. Jesuit World Order 2, which I believe was started by Steve Drake, who's been collaborating with Eric John Phelps, and they have been doing some absolutely incredible work together, especially on COVID and the connections of the Vatican to the COVID scamdemic. I highly recommend Jesuit World Order and Jesuit World Order 2, which is the active subreddit. It is probably the greatest repository in the 21st century for information about Rome, the Jesuits, the Vatican, and the papal bloodlines. And what's really fantastic about both is that if you just type in any topic you want to learn about, see about 9/11, which I will be talking about as well, all you got to do is type it in the search bar. And whatever research somebody has found will pop up. And there is some incredible research being done on there. Now, I want to make clear that I am not against any groups of people. We are all in this together. There are people above us and the system that they belong to that I am against, but most 99.999% of people are lateral to me. You're not above me. I'm not above you. We're in the same tax bracket. We suffer the same consequences of the actions of the 0.1% who are making our lives miserable and who are setting us on a course to become serfs in the digital dark ages. So, once again, I'm going to end it here. My name is Danny. I hope that I can be of some value to you, give you some new information that you may not have heard before. I am always welcome. I'm always open, and I welcome questions. I try to keep everything scholarly, so if you're just going to reach out just to say some stupid insult or call me a Jew, which I am, or anything like that, don't even waste your time. It's not worth your time. I'm here to speak to people who are truly seeking truth and intellect. People who may not be scholars, but they just want truth. And those people, I hope I could be of value to. I'm going to try to keep things as simple as possible. So, this was the syllabus. My name is Danny, and welcome to the Digital Disputation.